In 2003, he was shopping with his wife when he was shot twice by a random stranger on drugs. The first bullet missed his heart by 3 millimeters. The second bullet hit him in the head and completely destroyed his vision. Today, he runs a successful IT company that employs more than 80 people in the Philippines. He's also building assistive technology for the blind. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Marx Melencio, who is one of the winners of the first phase of OpenCV Spatial AI competition sponsored by Intel. This is our podcast AI for Entrepreneurs, and I'm your host, Satya Mallick from OpenCV. Welcome, Marx. It's a real pleasure to have you on the show, and you are an inspiration to so many people. And I did not know your story until recently, and I've been so inspired by what you have to offer as a person and as an entrepreneur. So we are really honored to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Satya, for having me here. I'm really happy to be here right now, and I'm happy to share my story.
That's great. So your story actually starts, we will go to your childhood, but your main story starts in the year 2003 when something really tragic happened. It's not, I cannot fathom how difficult it would have been for you. So walk us through how what really happened in 2003, the tragic incident, and how you came out of it. Tell us that story in detail. We have enough time.
So yes, I was 23 then, and I was still in college taking up mathematics at the University of the Philippines. And I was out with my wife. We were buying fried rice and a Filipino dish called bulalo. It's actually some meat and bones and soup.
Okay.
And when we were buying there, I encountered a couple of guys, and they seemed to be drunk, and they were tripping on my wife, Cherry Melencio. So I defended her, and the other guy shot me.
Wow.
And that was it. I was gunned down twice. The first bullet went through my chest, and I didn't. I didn't. It left me standing. So he followed me when I was going to my, because back then I had this motorbike. So I was going there. I wanted to drive myself and my wife to the nearest hospital because I had a bullet wound in my chest. So the guy followed me, and he pointed the gun at the back of my head. And when I what do you call this, looked at him, the gun slid, and it was at my I think it was at my right temple. Yes, and he pulled the trigger, and down I went. And but I didn't lose consciousness, but I immediately lost complete eyesight
Wow.
at that
So
time.
the first bullet, it missed your heart by 3 millimeters. And this guy did not
Yes,
stop there. He
yes,
followed you and used a second bullet. And from what I have read, it missed your brain by 2 millimeters. And you were
yes.
still
The
conscious.
midbrain. Actually, it hit my my right temporal lobe,
Oh,
and the
wow.
doctors needed to cut that away. So
Wow.
and that was theoretically for music appreciation.
Right.
They said, my neurosurgeon said, but I still play bass. So
You do.
yes, yes,
That's fascinating. So, but the bullet did damage your optic nerve, and
yes,
it left
yes.
you completely blind.
Yes, and it was permanent because optic nerves apparently they don't, just like other nerves, they don't regenerate, not yet. Hopefully through technology sometime soon, but unfortunately it's a permanent thing now. So the heat actually damaged the optic nerve. It singed it, and I lost my complete eyesight. So I've been completely blind for the past 17 years.
Wow, that's I'm really sorry to hear what happened. But what's more inspirational, I mean, is your story afterwards. Somebody who has
Mm.
been through such a tragic event shoots back, comes back. And I'm thinking that, we are all regular human beings, and our situations actually drive us to become superhumans. You are almost like a superhuman to most people, right? What you have achieved. It is the situation that actually drives us to become superhuman. So, how did it change? I'm guessing that you were in hospital for several months, if not several weeks. From that,
It was actually a month. Yes.
a month. And
Mm.
from that, you were still human there because getting care from all these people. And
Mm.
from there, you became superhuman. I don't know how long it took for you to put yourself together again and
Mm.
become the person that you are now. What was the transformation? How many months did it take? uh, Mentally, how did you actually come back? That's the main thing.
Mm.
Physically, people come back, but first it's a mental decision that you have to make, that you're not going to be uh, a normal life. It's not going to be a normal life, and therefore you are going to do something extraordinary to come back in life. So how did you make that change?
Well, at first, the doctors were quite surprised that I recovered quickly at the hospital. It
Hmm.
just I was just confined for a full month, and thankfully my wife she assisted me, and I just can't thank her enough for
Right.
everything she's continuing to do with me. So from that point, the first thing that I asked my doctors when they told me about the situation was, how can I read? Because I'm a voracious reader.
Right.
Back when I still had eyesight, I consumed about maybe two books per week. So
Wow. Yeah.
that was my habit, and that was my routine actually. And I was asking that, and they told me about this screen reader software.
Mm.
So I was a bit what do you call this, hopeful, and I was hoping for the best. And but unfortunately, of course, I wallowed in depression for around 3 to 5 months. I think I didn't leave my room
Right.
when we went back home. No? I
Hmm.
didn't no, I didn't leave the room. I didn't go out. I didn't do anything but listen to the AM radio and
Right.
audiobooks. I discovered audiobooks, and that was it. But then I realized that I needed to do something, just to first just to get rid of boredom, which would
Yes.
eventually, I thought it should eventually kill me, of course. And the next thing would be, the more important thing would be, I needed to support my family, because I already had a daughter then.
Hmm.
We The last time I had eyesight, when I saw my daughter, she was only 4 months old.
Wow.
Mhm. So that was my motivation to do something. So I taught myself on how to use the screen reader software, and how to use the computer again. And I also continued on because before I was gunned down, I had this small home business. I was assembling computers and fixing software, operating systems, setting up networks for our neighbors, and also for what do you call this, offices, small
Hmm.
offices. So I was doing that, and I tried doing it again. And this time, my wife assisted me in terms of telling me the colors of the cables, and for example, the IDE cable, the red part,
Right.
which does it point to. So that was it. And actually, my wife she's now an expert in assembling computers and troubleshooting
Very
because of that
nice.
experience. so, so we continued our business. I was blind then, and I was fixing computers for others. And
Wow.
I was setting up networks for for the offices of non-government organizations here because they're in the network of my parents.
Yeah.
So I was
So
doing that.
how many people were employed in this business that you had? It was just you and your wife, or you had employed other
Yes.
people?
No, no, it was just me and my wife at
Okay.
that time. I started out very entrepreneurial at an early
Yes.
age because my parents are social activists.
Okay.
And there was this time when they needed to disappear because the political climate here was quite tense.
Okay.
So I was left to fend for my kid sister. I was just 14 years old, and
Yeah.
my kid sister was 6 years old.
Wow.
So I was entrepreneur at that time. I offered this service. I call it an early version of Grab Food, if you may, no? Because I
Uh-huh.
did groceries for the neighbors. I
Oh,
had
very
my bike.
nice.
Yes, yes. I had my bike, and I took their list, their grocery lists, and I shopped for them, and they gave me money for that, and that put food on the table, and that kept the lights on.
Wow. So let me get this correct. You were at the age of 14, your
Mhm.
parents were probably in exile. They were away from home. And you were
Yes,
responsible for taking care of your 6-year-old sister all by
yes,
yourself. And
yes, yes.
also not just take care of her, but also make sure that there's food on the table. You were also responsible for making the money to support her.
Yes, and also for her to
Wow.
continue her studies. I already stopped going to school then.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so your education, when did you go back? Because you mentioned that when you were shot, at that time you were
Mhm.
going to a university.
Yes,
So
yes.
did you go back to school afterwards?
Yes, because I was originally from Quezon City Science. It's a special science high school here. And
Uh-huh.
I dropped out when after no, after the second year.
Mm-hmm.
Second year high school. Then I did some things. After 2 years, I learned about this Philippine Educational Placement Test that was
Right.
provided by our Department of Education here. So I took the test, and fortunately, I passed, and I went straight to college. So
Oh,
I
so
skipped.
that's very nice. They don't require you to have a lot of schooling. If you pass that exam,
Yes,
then you can go
exactly.
to college. Wow, that's good.
Yes, yes. And it was good. So I took that, and I took the entrance exam for the University of the Philippines because it's what do you call this, the official country university, if you may, the state
Right,
university of the country.
right.
And so there, when I took the test, I topped the entrance exams, and
Wow,
I got a full academic scholarship.
very nice. So
Yeah,
that's where you were when this incident. Which year were you in college when this thing happened?
I was at my third year
Okay.
college.
And
I
did you
was
continue afterwards? Like when you were back 3 or 5 months later, were you able to continue your education, or did you drop out of college at that point?
yes, yes, I was able to continue because fortunately there was already this distance learning program.
Oh,
They already had this virtual educational platform, and
uh-huh.
the same school, the University of the Philippines, was offering it. And also fortunately, because back in college I was among the wild and geeky. I played bass at a hardcore band,
Uh-huh.
and I also enjoyed mathematics. That's my course, but I also enjoyed no, shifting to other courses because I was interested in other subject areas. So I shifted to philosophy. I shifted to social sciences, and no, and that kind of stuff. So I had a lot of units when I
Right.
was already. So when I got back at the distance learning program, I credited my units, and I was able to take the last remaining units, and I was able to finish my undergraduate
So
degree.
it almost looks like if you get interested in something, you can really dive deep into the subject. and figure out things. And you do get interested in a lot of things. Like, there's bass, playing bass for a for a rock band, and
Yes,
then
yes.
taking philosophy classes, and also being very interested in computer programming, computer hardware, etc.
Yes,
So
yes.
those broad skills are very, very useful when you want to build something, and it's natural for people who are gifted in many ways. They get interested in several things, and uh, work on.
Yes, and I noticed that my focus was very intense when it comes to something I'm interested in.
Yeah.
I tirelessly read about a lot of things, and I spend a lot of hours reading and practicing and everything.
Hmm.
And that that even what do you call this became even more intense when I became blind, because focus is one of the main strengths of blind people, because
Right.
there aren't any the visual distractions.
That's true. That's interesting. I had not thought about that clearly. One, so I want to know more about the software that you just mentioned, the screen reader. Um, and I wanted to ask you whether, after using the screen reader as a blind person, were you able to do computer programming? I mean, how do you do computer programming as a blind person using that screen reader software?
Yes, for example, in C++ and in Python, I use Notepad, and
Hmm.
when I use the screen reader, it reads everything that I type. It echoes back everything that I type, and when I want to read a line, I just press the arrow keys. And when the cursor is on focus, it reads the line, and it can also read per character, per word, and per block of text. So there are
That's
keyboard
great.
shortcuts for that. And when before I became blind, I was a two finger touch typist.
Uh-huh.
So I was very slow in typing and everything. I didn't memorize the keyboard layout and everything.
Right.
But when I became blind and started using the screen reader, after I think a week, I was able to memorize the keyboard.
Wow.
And also what helped most is this JAWS for Windows, the screen reader software, because it was very expensive and we weren't able to find any shall we say pirated copies, because
Right.
we weren't able we weren't
Of
able
course.
to
Yeah.
afford it. It was
Yes.
$1,800 at that time.
eighteen hundred
So
dollars. It's expensive even by U.S. standards, but
yes,
for
yes.
I grew up in India, so it's. I'm guessing that the economics are very similar to
In the Philippines, yes,
in the
yes.
Philippines, right? eighteen
Yes.
hundred dollars. Just to give you an idea, my dad was a medical doctor in Border Security Force, so it's like the army. He was a doctor in the army, and when I was growing up, he used to make $200 per month, right? And that was like, oh, luxury. Right? It was it was good money. It was not bad money. It was good middle class income. So $1,800, in 2003, that would have been, about no more than $1,000, right? So $1,800 is almost like 2 months of your income. So it's not easy, right? That's an
Yes, exactly.
expensive piece of software.
Yes. And no, I just turned blind. So
Hmm.
at that time, I didn't have any income, and my wife was assisting me because I was still adjusting. So uh, all we relied on were our home business,
Yeah,
and it wasn't generating a lot of money at that time because I wasn't able to go out and promote it, no? Or to promote our services and
of course.
advertise. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was it. So what helped then was because this software has this 40-minute demo version. So it works for 40 minutes and it stops working. You need to restart the machine, the computer
Yeah.
again, so it can start working again. No? So I needed to learn really fast, and because
Yes.
I just had 40 minutes at a time, to use the
So,
machine.
so you would reinstall after every 40 minutes?
No, just reboot the computer.
Okay, okay, okay.
Mhm.
Reboot the computer.
And at that time, we still had dial up.
Yeah.
So when I was studying then, so I needed to check my emails. I needed to read everything. So what I usually did was I opened. I was using Yahoo Mail at that time, so
Hmm.
Yahoo, and it was quite slow, especially dial up.
Yeah.
So I already memorized the shortcut keys both for Windows and also for no, for JAWS, because
Right.
I needed to go to the previous email that I was reading before I needed to restart the machine. So I
Yeah.
was doing that, and I memorized everything because of that. And
Hmm.
fortunately, I was also introduced to this organization here, a social organization that looks after the welfare of blind people,
Uh-huh.
aptly called Resources for the Blind.
Right.
So I heard about their soft loan program for the software. Uh, they'll give me a fully licensed version, and the
Hmm.
soft loan is under pay whenever you can arrangement. So it
Oh,
was
very
quite good.
nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the requirement was for me to attend their free pre-employment training seminar.
Okay.
So, and it was just a week, and it was very beneficial because it's a free pre-employment training seminar for blind
Yes.
people. So I went there, and they trained me in mobility, they trained me in braille, and
Wow.
they also trained us in preparing ourselves for job interviews. And they had partners, commercial groups here, commercial companies and organizations. So they distributed our resumes to their partners.
Hmm.
And one of those companies was interested in my CV. So
Hmm.
they called me up and scheduled for an interview and an exam. It's a
Right.
tri-media company here. So I went there, and Resources for the Blind, the people there assisted me. They they guided me there, and I took the exam and I passed. So that was my first job as a blind person. I was a technology writer.
Oh, wow. But before that, you not try for? I was reading up your, some news articles about you. It mentioned that at one point you wanted to be a web developer right after this incident happened, and you
Yes,
learned
yes.
web programming in 7 days. Can you tell a
Yes,
little
yes.
bit about that?
That was before my first job. So I went to this computer school for the blind. It's
Hmm.
a tree because I heard about their medical transcription training course.
Right.
But at that time, I didn't have any money to pay for the no, for the tuition.
Hmm.
So I went there and was hoping that there could be some sort of an X deal, if you may. So I went there and told them that if you need, do you need to hire someone for whatever you need? I think I'll be able to learn how to do it.
Right.
And they told me, yes, we actually need the web developer. Okay, I can do that. I told them, just give me a week. I'll prepare for
Yeah.
everything, and then so when I went home, I read about web development,
Yeah.
particularly starting with HTML. So I started with that, and after a week, I was quite familiar with the language.
So this
And
was front end development, or was it back end development, like Python?
front end,
Okay.
really front end.
So
Yes,
HTML, CSS.
yes, yes.
Okay. Wow.
So that
So
was it. And
did you get that job?
yes, yes. And
Okay. Very.
they put me in a volunteer position. So
Uh huh.
I was it wasn't a really it wasn't really high their payment. I wasn't really getting what do you call this enough for our expenses.
For the family. Yeah.
But in exchange for the medical transcription training course, they gave the course free to me
Yeah.
in exchange for my web development services and sort of like an allowance as payment for my services.
That's really
So
nice.
Yeah, so I went there, and soon I discovered that medical transcription wasn't for me because
Hmm.
the only uh, the only experience I have with with medical topics would be my time at the hospital when I was gunned down.
Yeah, and that's not a pleasant time, obviously.
Yeah, so I decided to move to another field.
Yeah, so
Unfortunately,
what it also, conveys is that, success is not like a straight line. Oh, you do this, and everything lines up. You try different things, and only some of them actually work out, right? The important
yes,
thing is
exactly.
you have to explore things because you don't know what will work out. Like before medical transcription, before you went there and checked it out, you would not know whether this is right for you or not. But once you discovered that this is not right, you maybe spent a couple of months, a few months on that, but you came out that, okay, this is not for me. I'm going to try something else.
Yes, yes. I've been telling many of my friends that the same thing. They need to try something out because I know many of them are afraid to try things out, especially if they don't have what they think they don't have
Yep.
the right knowledge yet, the right experience. And I keep on telling you, how can you have knowledge and experience in doing something if you don't try it out first?
Right.
So you need to try it out, and if it doesn't work well for you, then you learned a lot of things from doing that, and you can apply that to other things.
Right.
Yeah, and that's my, that's still how I do things now. I learn as I go along. I I learn by doing mainly.
Yeah.
I can't learn any other way, I think.
Right. Right. That's great. Now, okay, so you got this government loan. What was the amount again? I don't remember if you mentioned. Uh, what kind of funding was this loan?
For
Uh,
the project,
yeah. Yeah.
for the project, the R&D it was a grant actually. It
Okay.
wasn't a loan, and it was for 100,000 US dollars,
Oh,
and
that's substantial.
yes, and it's a 2-year project, and mainly the target is for market validation. The target was to develop something that can be used by blind people,
Uh-huh.
and for it to explore other opportunities afterwards for mass production or upgrades and everything. So when I completed that, right now, that's what I'm doing. I'm looking for for ways to upgrade it, and afterwards
Right.
to mass produce it and distribute it to blind Filipinos and
But
other people.
even before that, you started the IT company. Was the IT company that's not really assistive technology for the blind, right? It also does other kinds of work, um, like web development kind of work. The IT company, which employs 80 people.
Ah,
Um,
yes, yes. We started out as a digital marketing company. I
uh-huh.
started that in 2005. Um, After I had my first job, I learned about the systems, how things worked, because I
Hmm.
was a technology writer,
Yeah.
and it was a tri-media company. So I learned about, and actually my first client at that IT business is also my former employer, because
Okay.
I negotiated some terms when I was doing my work there. I told him, hey, I can do the work from home,
Yeah.
and I can do a double quota shift, because
Hmm.
from home I'll be able to work more relaxed, and I won't spend time preparing to go to the office and everything. So he
So
agreed.
so
Mhm.
one of the skills of an entrepreneur, some people don't realize it, is how important is the skill to convince others. you know
Yes, yes.
Normal other people may not get this chance, but you have to take your chance that uh, doesn't matter whether other people are allowed to work from home or not, but I'm going to convince this person to let me work from home. That's a very useful skill, which gets hidden. People don't realize how useful the skill is.
Yes, it's actually selling an idea,
Yep.
selling yourself. Even if you're applying for a job, it's all about selling. It's
Yeah,
selling an idea, selling a product, selling yourself,
yeah,
and selling concepts even when collaborating with others. So
exactly.
and
So you were alone in this company when you started this company. How did you get the funding? Did you need any funding, or you just had clients? And how many people were there in the beginning?
yes, my first employer was my former employer was my first client,
Yeah,
and I was doing double shift. Then I again negotiated for more work,
yeah,
and I told him that I have a few friends they're interested in doing this as well. I can
right.
manage them, and I
Uh-huh.
can assure the quality of their work,
Yeah,
and I can do quality assurance, and I can send them to you. I'll manage the entire thing. And he
yeah,
agreed. So at first we started out for work at home moms and dads, my wife and I included. So
yeah,
we were just four. But then I expanded to the overseas market because I kept on researching, I kept on looking at things and basically doing market research.
uh-huh.
So I noticed that my employer wasn't focusing on an industry that was quite no that was quite lucrative. It was the IT industry.
Uh-huh.
So what I did then was look at the companies that had newly released products because I knew for a fact that they also needed marketing work done for them
Yeah.
and since these are mainly software companies,
Mm-hmm.
their marketing is mainly done on the web. So
Yeah.
they needed content writing, and for technology content, it's quite hard to it's quite challenging to find writers for
Right.
that niche.
Yeah.
Yes, especially I focused on the what do you call this the what the high tech niche because we were writing about executable files,
Yeah.
dynamic link libraries, and that kind of stuff. And
Oh, okay. So that's very technical content. It is not easy for people to just find people like that to write about. So it is
yes, exactly.
very technical content.
Yes, very technical content. And so I contacted this Canadian company,
Mm-hmm.
Pareto Logic, and they had this carrier product at that time. So I told them, hey, do you need content? We can write for you, and we actually have researched some keywords that would be suitable for your niche, and we showed some samples,
Yeah.
and after that they tried us out. Okay, we can try you out first for a few batches of
Yeah.
content work, and when they liked what they got, they asked me, hey Marks, would you be able to build a team of 140 people?
Wow.
Yeah. So, and this was I didn't go through the normal the gatekeepers and everything,
Yeah.
the managers. I went straight to the CEO when I contacted them, and
That,
I phoned.
that's a very good, that's a very good piece of advice that,
Yeah.
yeah, because if you hit that, if you get the CEO and they like your ideas, then it's
Mhm.
they are the decision makers. That is, they, if they
Yes,
refuse to
exactly.
work with you, then okay, you at least got refused by the CEO, right? Sometimes
Mhm.
it often happens that you get to a gatekeeper and they refuse your idea even when they didn't have the authority to refuse your ideas, right? The CEO might have agreed with your ideas. So
Yes,
always
exactly.
it's a good idea to always go for as high of a position as you
Mhm.
can when
Mhm.
you're reaching out to people. So
Also, I was thinking the gatekeepers probably wouldn't have no the experience to
the vision.
yes, to
Yeah,
see the idea,
that's
to
right.
look at the idea closer. Yes, yes.
So tell me one thing: when you approach these companies, right?
Mhm.
um, do you I'm guessing that at that time it was through email, and video conferencing, etc., was not common, so it was
Mhm,
mostly through
mhm.
email.
Yes, exactly. It was
So
first I sent them emails, and there was LinkedIn already, so LinkedIn in mail.
Uh-huh.
That's also up until today I get clients from LinkedIn anyway. So.
Yeah, me too, actually. We get
Mm-hmm.
clients from LinkedIn as well. Now, at some point, they would realize that you are completely blind. Is that
Mm-hmm.
something that you used to bring it up before, or you would not? You would not even mention because it's not important. What's important is how you deliver, or you wanted to. You would bring it up so that they are not surprised. What was your strategy? I mean, for people with disabilities who are running these, who are planning to start companies or trying to do
Yes.
this, is it something that you don't talk about initially, or is it something that you bring up immediately? What's your take on that?
Because at that time, images weren't required
Hmm.
for the content that we wrote. So
Yep.
I didn't mention it. I didn't mention that I'm blind.
Yep.
But they just learned it on their own when they of course they needed to learn more about me when they started giving me bigger contracts.
Yep.
They learned about it on their own, and they were quite pleased to be working with someone who was blind.
I'll tell you a personal story. And when I was starting, I didn't start a company, but my cousins started a company in India, which
Mm-hmm.
works. Most of the work that they do is for my company, and I didn't want to get into
Mm-hmm.
this taxation, etc. So
Mm-hmm.
they do Photoshop kind of work, Photoshop work for clients.
Mm-hmm.
And they usually, whenever they hire somebody, they ask me, oh, what do you think about this person, right? But they manage the business themselves. They just ask for my opinion. So one
Mm-hmm.
time I got this call from them saying that, we have a new artist. The only problem is that this artist is uh, deaf and dumb. He cannot speak, and he cannot hear.
Mm-hmm.
So I did not know what to say because I had never been in contact with any person with disabilities. That is not something.
Mm-hmm.
None of my friends, for example, I did not know how people with disabilities function in a as a productive a person in the society.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what I said was that, look, I have no idea, I have no idea, but I want to tell you that I'm not running a charity. If they do work, I'm going to give them an opportunity, but they have to perform the same level as a person who
Mm-hmm.
is
Yes.
able, right?
Yes. Yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
we hired that person, and
Mm-hmm.
after 2 months, I went to, they were, I was not involved in day-to-day operations of that thing. I just heard that things were going smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day I went to the person on our company, on our side, who was evaluating these Photoshop artists, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I went and asked her, oh, uh, can you rank the people who are working, the people who are working for us?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, who's the best in terms of quality, who's the best? And so she said there are two people who are about the same. There are top two people, they're about the same. And this guy was one of them, right? So this guy was producing exceptional content. And the only there was, the inconvenience was minor. It is just that when some work came came up, one of the team members had to explain him the work, and that was like 5-10 minutes of time, and he would do an exceptional job. And a lot of work was similar. So once you explain it, you don't have to explain it to him for
Yes, yes.
months. And he was doing exceptional work, right? And that opened up my mind. You have to have that experience working with people with disabilities. In fact, all of us have some sort of disability. It is just not visible, right? uh,
Yes, yes.
some person might have some depression or something like that, which will make them less productive in work, but because that thing is not visible, we don't hold it against them, or we don't judge them. Some people may not be there are all of us have certain kinds of disabilities, right? And
Yes, yes.
we don't they are not explicit. So that's what I learned from this person, and he still works for us. It has been 12, 13 years. He still works with us. So that was my experience, and I am so glad. I'm so glad that I did not let any kind of prejudice come in the way, because I did have a hesitation. I'll honestly say, people are not mature. I was 27, 28 at that time, without much world experience, right out of grad school. So uh, so it's, you're not very mature. The thinking is not very clear. Now I would not even think about think twice. I would
Yes,
still
yes.
hold people to very high standards, that they have
Yes,
to
yes.
perform at very high standards. So that was my okay. Back to the story. This is fascinating. I cannot tell you how inspired I am by just talking to you. And I'm, right after this call, after the video is done, I'm going to ask my older son to watch this video and learn from it.
Thank you.
He's 10
Thank you.
years old, enough to understand these things. So I'm pretty certain that he'll be very inspired as well. So now, so this company, they said that hire 140 people for them, and because
Yes.
it only happens when you have actually shown that you can run a business very efficiently and with
Yes,
exceptional
exactly.
quality, right? That's why they gave you the opportunity.
Yes, yes, because you've already proven your worth.
Yeah.
Yes,
So that's
exactly.
the company that you were running, the content creation for information technology. When did you get this grant, the grant for people with disabilities and creating this hardware?
2017.
Okay.
That was about what do you call this? 12 years after our first contract. So when we got that contract, they required
Hmm.
us to register a business because of
Uh-huh.
taxation
Right.
issues.
Hmm.
So we did that, but I negotiated the deal because okay, I can set this up, but I don't have any money at the moment to set up that big team. Yeah.
Right.
So I told them, you can give me a deposit, and
Hmm.
I'll use that to register a business
Yeah.
and rent out an office, set everything up, and that's it. And they
Yeah.
agreed because they wanted me to hire that many people.
Yes.
So they agreed, and that's what I did. I registered the business, and from then on, I've been contacting clients, closing contracts, building more teams. Because
Right.
my purpose back then was to provide gainful employment opportunities to persons with mobility impairments. Because
Wow.
at that time, I experienced the same problems, because when I was looking for a job, a lot of companies turned me down just because their systems weren't ready to
Yeah.
give me exams, test me out, and everything.
Yeah.
They just weren't ready.
Out of the at one point in 2017, the company had grown to about 200 people, and how many of those people had some sort of disability?
Around there was this time. It was in 2017. It was in 2008.
Hmm.
We were at that time 120, and 90 were persons with
Wow.
disabilities. Yes, yes. And
Wow.
that's why our national government gave me this 2008 most inspiring entrepreneur of the Philippines award. They gave
Wow,
that to me.
congratulations. I'm not surprised at
Thank
all. I
you,
mean,
thank you.
it is such a big deal. It is such a big deal. Did you also win awards, international awards? Because, I cannot even imagine how many people like you are there in the world who have this level of contribution to the society. Have you won?
Not exactly awards, but I've been representing our country at
Hmm.
ASEAN conferences, and also at United Nations conferences, mainly about the role of business and ICT in the lives of persons with disabilities.
I saw one of those talks
Mhm.
you had posted online. That's very
Mhm.
inspiring. So
Mhm.
now you started building this hardware. What are the
Mhm.
components of the hardware? Can you explain what does the hardware do and what are the various components of it? Um,
Yes, yes. So mainly we used a sonar sensor to detect
mhm,
distance. And
mhm.
I also put in an earn vibrating motor at the back of the sonar sensor so that it can provide haptic feedback.
Uh-huh.
For example, as objects get nearer, the vibrations get faster. As it
One second. So this is a wearable device, right? This is these are you wear it like glasses or
yes,
how does?
like glasses.
Okay, so
It's actually designed as a pair of glasses.
okay, so it's a wearable
So
device, pair of
mm,
glasses. It has sonar and
mm,
for distance measurement. What else
yes,
was
yes.
there?
Below the sonar, we placed the
Hmm.
camera lens, and at the back of the sonar sensor was the vibrating motor for haptic feedback,
Got it.
and so the cables snake out through the arms of the glasses at the
Got
ends
it.
of the arms, and I also integrated bone conducting speaker pads at the end of the arms of the glasses.
Got it.
So that to provide audio output, audio
Yeah.
feedback.
So
And
these are the same kinds of, there are some
mm,
speakers which use bone conduction, and you can actually hear them, and other people cannot hear that kind of thing, right?
yes, yes,
These.
exactly.
Okay. Okay.
These are no, these are all ubiquitously available electronic components.
Yeah.
But the problem there was finding the smallest ones. So it took me a lot of time to find the smallest and test out a lot of components
Yeah.
because I was relying mainly on the measurements.
Yeah.
I couldn't see that. No, I couldn't see the product, and most of them anyway didn't have any what do you call this sort of a way to compare things in terms of size.
Yeah.
They didn't have any pictures, so my wife wasn't able to describe these things to me.
Yeah.
So, but I found the smallest components at that time, and we used an x86 single board computer
Hmm.
because mainly because blind users prefer to use Windows computers
Okay.
because as for me, I don't like the screen reader of Linux Orca.
Yeah.
I don't like how it sounds, and
Right.
a lot of blind users don't like it too. So I used an x86 SBC because I also wanted to provide another benefit. It can also be a wearable computer from
Right.
that point because you can run full Windows 10 on it.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I also integrated a GPS board.
Hmm.
So to integrate a location-based data that can be
Right.
quite useful for blind people, especially when they're traveling outside.
Yeah.
That's it, and I fine-tuned open source pre-trained machine learning models for
Nice.
object recognition, object detection, and I also fine-tuned the what do you call this? The semantic segmentation data set of MIT
Nice.
because they have this no, they have a lot of classes that's very useful for indoor and outdoor mobility.
Right. Right.
Yes.
So did you so you trained your own models, but did you also use Microsoft's cognitive? I was listening to one of the videos. Did you also use Microsoft like prepackaged
Yes,
services
yes.
like Microsoft Cognitive Services?
Yes, yes, I used that. I also integrated that. At first, I wanted to use it solely. So,
Hmm.
it'll be sort of like an IoT device.
Right.
And but the problem is when I started doing my research
Hmm.
across the grassroots communities of blind people here in the
Yeah.
Philippines, I learned that many rural areas, the provinces here, don't
Yeah.
have stable internet connectivity,
Right.
and it's very costly for them as well to keep on buying prepaid
Yeah.
mobile data.
Yeah.
So I figured that okay, um, I'll just offer both as
Yeah,
an on-demand component. For example, if there's internet, it uses the internet. If there isn't, it uses the on-device system.
that's very nice. How much does this device cost?
That was that's also the main thing that I've been trying to optimize,
Yeah.
because without any mass production capacity,
Hmm.
the product costs around 30,000 pesos, which would be around $600. But I think we can further reduce it,
Yeah.
especially with mass production capacity. I
Yeah.
think it can be driven down to around 400.
Okay. That's interesting. And you know, you actually ordered an Oak D board even before we did the Kickstarter campaign. Um, so the idea was to, miniaturize everything, right? This board actually allows you to do things, remove several components from your hardware. Can you explain
Yes,
how
yes.
Oak D was useful?
Yes, exactly. And because I was continuing to upgrade the system,
Hmm.
trying to find out ways to optimize size and especially processing speed.
Yeah.
I wanted a more real-time engine, when
Yeah.
it comes to on-device processing.
Uh-huh.
So I found this BW1097 board that was a Depth AI, I think back then.
Yeah.
Now it's a OpenCV AI kit.
Yes.
So I contacted Brandon and I was asking about it because I was quite interested in its ability to detect depth and distance.
Yes.
Because I'm with that, I'm now able to get rid of the sonar sensor because it's quite bulky. Even if it's the smallest one, it's still bulky. Um, and also, what do you call this? I was thinking of other ways to other industrial design ideas,
Yeah.
not just a pair of eyeglasses, because it's quite difficult to produce something that looks like an ordinary pair of glasses, because
Right.
that's the target, and
Yeah.
it's quite hard, especially we don't have significant resources to keep on
Right.
trying. so
Right. Right.
um, so that's why we decided to go with the OpenCV AI kit, because it's ideal for a chest strapped wearable form factor,
Right.
and
Right.
it can detect depth and distance, and it provides real time simultaneous object recognition, detection, and everything. And
Yeah.
that's the main thing there.
And also the resolution. I one of the things that I felt was very useful is the resolution of the main camera. The RGB camera is 12 megapixels,
Yes, yes,
and
exactly.
which means that you can actually look far, right? You can detect objects which are small and far
Yes,
away
yes.
as well. So that could be very interesting. Um,
And also, I know, because of our first iteration, it was just a sonar sensor, so
yeah.
you can just place it at the one stationary position, and
Yeah.
it can only detect a certain conical area.
Uh-huh.
So it was just the central object.
That's
Uh,
true.
you'd only be able to detect the distance of the central object. But here you can detect objects, and actually the placement is very important for blind users. For
Yeah.
example, we I know we use a clock face placement system.
Yeah.
For example, it's 12 noon, 1 o'clock, three
Uh-huh.
o'clock, going up to 10 o'clock, then dead center. So
Yes.
we need when we when we're what do you call this, looking for an object, when we ask someone to tell us,
Yeah.
it's faster to tell us the clock face direction. Hmm.
Got it. And are those that's the standard interface that most blind people use, and even is that the standard interface people
Yes, yes,
use? Okay.
yes. Children who are born blind, and up to people who lose their eyesight even later in life,
Yeah.
we're trained the same way in terms of mobility.
Uh-huh.
In fact, we're even trained that way when it comes to food on our plates.
Right.
The chicken is at 12 noon, the
Oh,
rice is
nice.
at
Right,
3
right,
o'clock.
right, right. That's fascinating. Now, there must be a difference, like when you are coding, right? When you are coding, I'm assuming that the whole visualization, you are actually seeing the characters in your mind. And tell me if it is wrong. I'm just imagining this thing. When you're coding, do you see the characters and the words in your mind? It's almost like you're looking at a screen, uh, but without the actual screen. But you're looking at a screen in your mind. Is that how you visualize things, or am I getting it completely wrong?
When it comes to when it comes to reading text,
Yeah.
because I researched about this,
Hmm.
and it turns out that reading is more of an auditory activity than a visual activity.
Okay.
But when I visualize things, other objects, I mean, for example, a laptop, a table,
Yeah.
I form images in my mind because I had eyesight back then.
Uh-huh.
But for people who are born blind, they
Yeah.
don't have that. So what they see based on what my blind peers tell me,
Yeah.
those who are born blind, um, what they see are mainly auditory and what do you call this, tactical representations.
Right. Yeah.
Because
Because they don't have experience with visual uh,
yes,
stimulus.
and their visual cortex
Hmm.
uh, is mainly used for auditory processing.
Yeah. So that's brain plasticity, right? The brain
Yes,
actually
yes,
changes in very spectacular ways, so
yes,
that
exactly.
the the parts of the brain which were meant for something else are now
Yes.
being used for for visual. They are now being used for auditory. And that could actually be true about you mentioned that the doctors probably predicted that you will not be able to play music or sense music,
To appreciate it.
appreciate music. But that clearly is not true. You can play the bass, and that could be, some of the rewiring still happens. You had all the learnings, and you can still
Yes, yes.
appreciate some of this. uh, what we are almost, I think, how many, yeah, we are almost uh, towards the end of this podcast. I wanted to ask you, some resources for blind people, because I'm guessing that once I put this information out there, there would be a lot of blind people who can benefit a lot from the resources that you have. So, are there standard places where people can go for resources for blind people, especially software developers and the technical community, blind people in the technical community? What are good resources for blind people?
For beginners, tutorials point is a good way to learn
Uh-huh.
any language that they want.
Okay.
That's where I started learning Python and C++.
Uh-huh.
And when they want to move on to more interesting subject areas, for example, machine learning, deep learning,
Hmm.
I think that's more of a jump. No? but
Yes.
yes, yes. But if they want that, I think your blog is really good.
Thank you.
And also Adrian's blog
Adrian's
is
blog is
really
very
good.
good too.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. So yes, that's enough. That's exactly it. Because these resources are no are written in ways that make it quite quick and easy to understand. Because there's this I've been noticing a problem with technical people.
Uh-huh.
They tend to not be too much trained in communication. So
Well, what I think is that even when people are trained to write, sometimes
Mhm.
people deliberately choose to write in a way to impress other people, right? Oh, look, I'm using
Mhm.
these words that you don't know, right? Things
Mhm.
like that. they are writing or speaking to impress and not to explain. uh,
Yes,
and
yes,
in
exactly.
both our blogs, Adrian's blog and my blog, we put a lot of
Mm-hmm.
emphasis to make sure that people understand the underlying concept and
Yes,
not really be bothered by the jargon.
yes, yes.
Yeah,
And also, I like how you outline the content. It makes it digestible. It makes it easier to follow, and it actually provides a sort of a systematic approach to the problem being tackled, which is
thanks.
uh, which is really good.
So,
Yes.
are there any resources for blind people specifically, some software, etc., that people maybe some some I don't know whether there are courses like the course that you took that you would recommend for people who are blind and helping them with assistive technologies or with jobs or things like that, which you
Mm-hmm.
think would be useful. Like a classic example would be the kind of course that the government, no, you were required to take, and that helped you a lot. You mentioned
Yes,
where,
yes.
where they talked about mobility and other things, how you can,
Mm-hmm.
and also about how to get a job and things like that. So, what are good resources that blind people can go to for that kind of training?
First would be to look around for social organizations in their local area.
Hmm.
Here, it's resources for the blind, and mainly they have branches in because the Philippines is divided into three main areas: Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. So they
Hmm.
have branches there. As for blind people in other countries, it's best to ask what do you call this? Their ophthalmologists, because
Got it.
um, because ophthalmologists are familiar with the social organizations around them that look after the welfare of persons with blind people. So
Are there technical
ophthalmologists and
are there
yes.
technical communities in online communities for developers who with disabilities that you would recommend? Are there some communities like that, or it doesn't matter? They should just join regular communities, and the technology is there that they will be fine.
For beginners, I recommend looking for specific groups in Facebook. There are
Hmm.
about a couple or so that I'm a member of, and I can't remember the names of the groups at this moment. But they can search for it, and it'll appear there.
Yeah, you
Just
can.
search
If you
for.
could, if you could email us, we will just put that information in the show notes,
Okay,
so
okay,
that people
yes,
can
yes.
access that information. Now,
And
if people,
that's very useful for beginners because beginner blind programmers need to know the type of software that they need, the type of computer, and the what they call this, the interpreters and the languages to focus on if they want to do a certain set of specific tasks. Mhm.
that's true, and also encouragement, right? I mean,
Yes, yes.
any blind person who watches a video of you, it completely changes. You know the limitations that they are thinking about, that completely goes
Yes,
away.
yes.
It expands your
Exactly.
mind, it expands your imagination, that somebody uh, who's blind was able to achieve so much. So it's an inspiration that also, these forums also provide that social support that is useful for people.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So if people want to reach out to you, what is the best, would you like to give your email address or your Twitter handle? I mean, social networking handles. Where can people reach you?
Email would be good.
Yeah.
And I'll send you my email so you can
Yes.
flash it perhaps. Yes. And
Okay.
also there are contact details at our website.
Okay, great. Yes, in our show notes, we will, we'll link to your website and put all the contact details, so that if
Mm.
if people with other organizations want to contact you, they will have,
Mm-hmm.
it will be easy for them to contact you as well.
Also, yes, I just want to recommend another resource. It's Daniel Kish. That's
Uh-huh.
Kish. So ano he provides what do you call this, mobility training for the blind, and it's quite unique and very fascinating. I'm starting to learn it myself. It's echolocation.
Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
So do you wear a device for that which does echolocation, or do you do it some other way?
You click your tongue, and you can have
Wow.
a simple clicker.
Yeah.
And actually I'm starting to see the sonar flashes that he's talking about.
Wow.
Mhm.
So you can make sounds with your tongue and recognize based on the echoes.
Yes, it's sort of sonar flashes, and we did an experiment the other day, my wife and I. I was able to what do you call this, correctly identify the shape, the location, and the distance of 7 out of 10 objects.
Wow, that's fascinating. And that you're just starting, right? With practice, it
Yes,
gets
I'm
even
just
better.
starting. Yes,
Wow,
exactly.
that's
So that's
fascinating.
Daniel Kish, and I think he's based in the U.S. So they can look for him, and he has this what do you call this? This non-profit organization. It's
Uh-huh.
called Blind World Access, I think.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, we will actually research that and put that in the show notes as well, a link to Daniel Kish.
Mhm.
So that is pretty much all I wanted to cover in this podcast, in this video cast. And I'm really, really thankful that you were able to find time and be on this show. Really appreciate it. And like I said, that you are an inspiration for all of us.
Thank you, thank
It's
you,
it's really great to talk to you. Thank you.
thank you for having me here. I really enjoyed talking to you and to everyone here.
Great.
Hopefully, they'll be inspired and motivated to do some things that would be very beneficial to others.
That's great. And all the best for the spatial AI competition. It's still on. The final round is still on. So all
No,
the
thank
best for
you,
that.
thank you, thank
Okay.
you, thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye bye, Sancho.
Bye.
Thank you.